afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Krieger. I am the Chief of Staff here at Decision Tactical. Thank you all for coming out today, and what an honor it is to have CFO Ngola here. One thing that I've read and learned about CFO Ngola is he is dedicated to the people of Florida, to making sure that we are taken care of, respected, and all of our money is spent properly. At this time, I'd like to introduce him, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here, and good morning to everyone. I am Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ngola. It is an honor to be here with you guys, once again helping to protect the taxpayers of the great state of Florida. Since entering this office as CFO, I have been on a mission to highlight the excessive and the wasteful spending of local government in an effort to make the case for serious property tax reform, including the elimination of property taxes on homesteaded properties altogether. So far, to date, we have found wasteful and excessive spending to the tune of $190 million in Orange County, $199 million in the city of Jacksonville, $278 million in Hillsborough County, $84 million in Alachua County, and $189 million in Broward County. In those 5 counties alone, we have uncovered more than $944 million of what we are calling wasteful and excessive spending. Last week, when the governor and I were in the city of Jacksonville, I made a statement that if any local government raised property taxes this year when families are hurting and trying to make ends meet, they would get a knock on their door by me and my office. Well, knock, knock, Seminole County. Seminole County just raised property taxes on the taxpayers when, according to our calculations, they should be cutting taxes. Now, we'll get to Seminole County's numbers soon. And I'm sorry to say that when we include Seminole County's numbers, we will now be over $1 billion in uncovered wasteful and excessive spending. That is $1 billion in 6 counties that belongs in the wallets of the taxpayers, not in the hands of government. That is $1 billion of property tax cuts that could easily be obtained with 0 cuts to service. 0 cuts to service. Now, local governments are going to try to do anything and everything to try to convince you that they need every single dollar in order to fund government. They're going to list a parade of horribles, including long wait times when you call 911, not being able to hire fire and police, not being able to give government employees cost of living adjustment raises, and possibly even eliminating some government services whatsoever. They are going to try to make it as hard as possible for you to fathom that they could actually cut government and keep services at the same time. They're not being truthful with you. They're going to try to refute our numbers. We're seeing it right now. They're going to try to refute our numbers. They're going to have their big government apologists and opinion writers pen Sunday editorials, which we predicted, claiming the increase in their budgets is because of inflation and population growth. They can refute the numbers. They can try, but they can't, because the numbers are the numbers, and we are pulling the numbers off of their own budgets. In fact, I think out of the 5 counties that we did so far, 3 of the either administrators or mayors or people on the Board of County Commission or the City Commission said that our numbers were incorrect. We actually had to tweet back at them and tag them in the post and say, hey, here are the numbers, straight from your budget. Obviously, they didn't like hearing that. But they're saying it's because of inflation and population growth. We staunchly disagree. I want you to take a look at this. We've been highlighting this because we had predicted this was going to happen. This is from a news report, Tampa Bay Times, and it says the increases are largely attributable to inflation and rising population, not government graft, local leaders say. We are here to call BS once again. Now, before we start unveiling the numbers, here's a little bit about our methodology and how we get to these numbers, because it is important for everyone to understand. And if you're a local government official or a bureaucrat, I want you to replay this over and over and over again, because you guys simply do not understand what excessive and wasteful spending is. So we'll go a little slow. So what we did was, and when we make these, and when you understand the methodology, you're going to understand how we can say that they can safely reduce property taxes. And if they're not, hopefully, after the presentation of numbers, you're going to see that they're being untruthful to you. All they want to do is keep their large, bloated budgets, their gravy train, continuing to go. So what we did is we started off with the 2019-2020 year. That is a baseline budget that we are using, okay? We're doing that pre-COVID. So the first budget that was done before the explosion of government, with all of the money flowing into the state coffers and local coffers from the federal government. 2019 is what we use as the base budget. Then, like the local governments should be doing, they should be increasing their budget every year for inflation and population growth. So we started in 2020 fiscal year, and we increased it every year, indexing it for inflation and population up until the 24-25 budget, 5 years. So why is that important? That means in our numbers, when we calculated using the methodology that I'm going over here today, we included extra fire rescue people, because with an increased population, there is going to be more of a demand for more fire rescue. That makes sense. We added for population growth. We've also included extra law enforcement, police, sheriff's deputies in our numbers. We've already assumed for that because we are indexing for population growth. We included raises for law enforcement and general government employees also. Inflation. What they said they were going to do. We've indexed all that. We included extra money because of increased costs. So when local governments say, no, it's just an explosion of population or because of increased cost, to a certain degree they're right, but not the extent that they are overtaxing and overspending everyone and trying to give the impression that they need all of that money to fund that stuff. We've accounted for everything that a local government should or would need in order to deliver services to the taxpayers. And Seminole County, just like every other county and city, blew right past those numbers. Now, we've crunched the numbers. Once we did, in Seminole County still exceeded inflation and population, which would be a realistic budget. Because when we did the numbers, indexing for inflation and population, we came up with the number what it should be, what the government general fund budget should be, realistically. Seminole County blew past that number. In our estimation, $48,445,891. This is past accounting for growth in government with inflation, population. That is past hiring fire and police. This is the number that the county has spent over and above what we believe should be a reasonable budget in order to deliver services. Let's put it into a little bit of visual context for you guys. Here is your Seminole County budget. As you can see, we started off, just for some visual, the 2019-2020 actual budget. Once we index and increase the budget for inflation and population growth, we should be where the blue ends. Seminole County blew past it, and that was the actual spending. Overtaxing and overspending Seminole County residents by the tune of $48 million and change. Now, this is what we are terming excessive and wasteful spending, because they could have easily funded everything that they needed to do with the lower number. But what does that mean? Just like other local governments that I have talked about, we're going to break this down piece by piece so lay people can understand what this number means and why it is excessive. Since 2019, the Seminole County General Fund budget has increased $137 million. Now, that is a 46.7% increase in their budget in just 5 years. That's a big number. That huge increase was for a population growth of 25,338 people. So the question you have to ask is an extra 25,000 people in the county worth an increase of $137 million? Well, let's put this into perspective so everyone understands that just because population increases doesn't necessarily mean that government needs to grow at the level it is growing. Just because costs are costs. If inflation goes up, everyone's costs go up. Your costs go up as homeowners, government's costs go up. But just because you have more people moving into a city or a county does not mean that you have a blank check to grow government exponentially. There are things governments can do. They can automate things. They can introduce technology. You can have people more productive. You just don't go hire people for the sake of hiring people. It's unfortunate, but most governments that we come across, we see this. But let's put that number in context. The 25,338 people, that means for every person that moved into Seminole County over the last 5 years, the budget increased $5,402. For every family of 4 that moved into Seminole County, the budget increased for $21,608. That family of 4 number is the number I want you guys to concentrate on. Because when you have a new development, when somebody is building a brand new home, and you have a family of 4 move into the county, they're probably only paying maybe $5,000 a year in property taxes, which I would say is high. But the government is expanding by $21,608. That math does not math. I don't understand this. At the state level, our cost per unit is going down, but in local government, the cost unit is actually going up. So to recap, according to our calculations, Seminole, their current budget is $48.4 million higher than what it should be. Again, let's be clear, because the big government apologists and career tax and spend politicians are going to go out and say that they need every dime because of inflation and population. They're going to come out and they're going to make excuses. And some of these excuses, honestly, I have to laugh. I do. I have to laugh. Some of them are saying, yeah, but we hired police. Yep, we've accounted for that. Yeah, we hired fire. Yep, accounted for that. We have increased costs for inflation. Yeah, hired for that. My favorite is when they come out and say something like, we had to build new roads. That's not the general fund budget. We had to build fire stations. That's not the general fund budget. And you know why they say that? Because most people don't know that that's not part of the general fund budget. That's the total budget. The larger budget for the counties are much bigger than the general fund budget. We concern ourselves with the general fund budget because that is the portion that collects and expends property taxes. In addition, there's gas tax, there's sales tax, there's a portion of state sales tax, there's local option. All that stuff goes into the general fund budget. So, by our calculations, based upon that $48 million number, Seminole County government could have easily cut the millage rate by 0.81 mils and still delivered property tax relief and still paid for essential services. Now, that's all fine and dandy. It's 0.8 mils. Most people don't know what 0.8 mils does. They don't know how to calculate their property taxes, so we'll put it into context and perspective for them. If you had a taxable value on a home in Seminole County with our proposed cuts to property taxes, they would save $324 a year. If you had a taxable value of $500,000, you would save approximately $404 a year. If you had a taxable value of $600,000, you would save about $485 a year. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this is just the general fund portion of the budget. Local government, the school budgets, are wasting money also. And I will say this blanketly, every level of government, whether it is state, federal, local county commissions, local city councils, school boards, enterprise funds, every single level of government is wasting money and spending taxpayer dollars and fees obnoxiously. Now, those tax cuts, they are real money put back in the pockets of taxpayers. But here in Seminole County, the county commission didn't cut your taxes. They actually raised your taxes. They increased the millage rate from 4.8751 to 5.3751. In a time when people are hurting and want property tax reform, they gone out and voted to raise your taxes. Now, I understand that people are out there saying that this exercise is just a way to demonize big blue counties and cities. Last time I checked, there was 4 Republicans on the county commission here and 1 Democrat. Is it 5? Is it 5 and 2? It's 5, it's all 5. Spending knows no partisan boundaries. Republicans and Democrats are spending us into oblivion. We are seeing it at all levels of government. Now, the county commissioners claim that this was because of essential services. I think we just sort of proved that we've accounted for all of that. So again, we are calling BS. But here's the deal. Our spending numbers went from 2019 to 24-25. When you account for the raising of taxes that you just had here in Seminole County, the number goes from 48 million to 77 million. It's a much larger number. Local governments at all levels need to be held accountable and restrained when it comes to their spending. Here, they're actually making the situation worse. I promised to call them out. It wasn't a veiled threat. I told people I was going to protect the taxpayer every waking hour, every minute while I'm in this job. Now, when you add the 77 million on top of that, that means our office, through our FAFO initiative, have now breached the $1 billion mark of excessive and wasteful spending in just 6 counties here in the state of Florida. Quite honestly, I wish we didn't have to do this. I wish we did not have to go out and travel and crunch these numbers and call upon local governments once again to cut the wasteful, excessive spending. Let me show you this also. That number just got bigger. That number just got bigger. According to our calculations, we believe that you're being overtaxed and local government is overspending to the tune of $77 million. Governments are wasting money left and right, crying poor and then wanting more, and more money in the form of higher taxes. People have had enough. Your property taxes are going up not because of essential services, but because of excessive, wasteful spending by career politicians and bureaucrats who think you are an endless ATM for them. As your CFO, I will not stand idly by while Florida families are being taxed out of their homes. It is always good to remind them that it is not their money, it is our money. Government is expanding because they can, not because they need to. Local governments are tone deaf to what's actually going on inside our communities. They need to listen more to what's happening on Main Street and listen less to what's being told to them by bureaucrats in the halls of government. They need to listen to the grocery store clerk and stop listening to a city manager that's making $250,000, $350,000 a year. Affordable housing is a big issue here in the state of Florida. Many local officials say that it is the #1 issue for them. But yet when we tell them exactly how they can make housing more affordable for their constituents by cutting property taxes, they aren't interested. Local governments cannot complain about the lack of affordable housing at the same time they're helping to create the affordable housing crisis themselves. They can cut their bloated budgets and deliver property tax relief. They are choosing not to. Every dollar that a couple starting a family saves on property taxes matter. Every dollar that a retired couple on Social Security saves on property taxes matter. Every dollar that a single mom working 2 jobs saves on property taxes matter. Every day, people in the private sector have to prioritize their lives with the amount of money that they have. It's time that government does the same. Floridians have made it clear that they want property tax relief soon. And we're going to have an opportunity to give that to them on the November 26th ballot with the lofty goal of eliminating property taxes on homesteaded properties altogether. Before I introduce the speakers, one last thing. Government is going to cry. They're going to complain. The editorials are going to come out. The county commissioners, the county administrators are going to come out and say that they can't do it, they can't do it, they can't do it. Unfortunately for them, history proves otherwise. Because if you remember, in the mid-2000s, we had a rise in property values, a corresponding rise in property taxes. Local governments filled their coffers. They expanded governments. They lobbied legislators. They lobbied county commissions to don't cut property taxes at all because it would destroy and devastate services. For the people around here in the mid-2000s, y'all remember that. It was incessant. Every time they would go to town halls. They would do everything that they can to keep their bloated budgets. And this is how I know for a fact that they can cut and they're going to be fine. Because they did it back then. Because we had a constitutional amendment that offered an additional homesteaded property tax, a homestead exemption. Remember that? So local governments who said that they could not cut because of the additional homestead exemption. But at the same time, and people remember this, for the first time in history of the United States, property values actually went down. So the assessed values went down, which meant less property tax revenue. An additional homestead exemption went up, which added an extra cut to government. How many firemen did they fire? None. How many law enforcement officers did they fire? None. Did local government employees get raises? Yes. Did some local government employees lose their jobs? Yeah, probably. But you have to question where they needed in the first place, growing government. We've seen this game before. We're immune to the parlor tricks of local governments saying that they need all this money. We are here to make the case, and I think we've made it, that local governments can cut and keep us safe. And for those local governments that say that you are going to have to cut fire and police and we're going to devastate the communities, stop lying to the taxpayer. With that, I'd like to recognize Bob McClure from James Madison Institute to say a few words. Mr. McClure.
Thank you, CFO. Thank you for highlighting a major issue that is affecting all Floridians. Many of you don't know me. I'm Bob McClure, President and CEO of the James Madison Institute, which is Florida's oldest and largest think tank. And people ask what a think tank is. We're not a lobbying firm. We're not a contract research firm. We are focused on policies that advance limited government, free markets, and personal responsibility and the protection of private property. And that is our role. We've been around since 1987, based in Tallahassee. When you talk about private property, the question becomes, as the CFO has said, do you ever really own your home if you're going to continue to pay property taxes every year? And not only that rhetorical question, the other component to that is you're paying taxes on unrealized gains. The CFO has shown how Seminole County has grown since 2019 in terms of its revenue and spending. But it's not limited to Seminole County. It's your friends and family members all across the state of Florida. On average, local municipality spending, when combined with inflation, has grown roughly 47% a year. So I would ask you in this room and all Floridians, is your life 50% better because of this government spending? The answer is no. Thomas Jefferson said it best. The tendency is for government to grow, which bids liberty to retreat. And that means that more bureaucrats, higher taxes, do not allow Floridians to chase their version of the American dream. And so the CFO and the governor are on the right track. Finally, I'll close with this. The James Madison Institute, Florida's state think tank, has done polling in the field for many, many years, and we just released a poll about a month ago. 75% of Floridians all across the state are worried about the cost of living. And first among those issues is the cost of housing, as the CFO said. 72% of Floridians want to completely eliminate property taxes or drastically reduce them. We can't get 72% of this country to agree that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And yet we know what Floridians want. So this is an incredibly important role and an important opportunity for the state, not only to do the right thing by taxpayers so they have more money in their pocket to chase their version of the American dream, but as the CFO and the governor have done for many, many years, to be the first in the nation to lead the country on an issue as important as this. The entire country is watching. And when we get this right, and I believe we will, the rest of the country will follow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So just to piggyback off of that, Florida leads the nation when it comes to a lot of these issues. Everyone looks, look, I was a legislator for 10, 11 years, and a lot of the stuff that we did in the state legislature, a lot of the bills that I quite frankly carried, I would get phone calls from people in other states saying, hey, do you have a copy of that legislation? Let's replicate it in Texas. Let's replicate it in Iowa. Let's replicate it in Arkansas. But there's a reason. It's because Florida leads on these issues. Everyone looks to Florida to see what they're doing. Could you imagine if the state of Florida had no personal income taxes and no property taxes on homestead exemption. You want to talk about generational wealth starting to be created here in the state of Florida? That's what we're talking about. Actually having people keep more of their own money and limiting the size and scope and the spending of government. That is a goal worth attaining. Now we'd like to call up Jesse Phillips, a small business owner in the IT space.
Thank you, Mr. Angolia, for this opportunity. I was really happy to hear you say that the addiction to spending is not a partisan issue. It certainly crosses the party lines, and I just wanted to speak to my city, hometown of Winter Springs. We're facing these same issues there. He mentioned government officials crying about things. I've made some of my local municipal leaders cry because of the issues that we've highlighted there. We have for the last 6 years had multiple state agencies investigating the various activities in the city there. And some of the things we have found is the same symptoms of a bloated payroll in Winter Springs, which is a purportedly Republican-run town. The payroll has grown from 7 to 8 million back in 2018 up to over 12 million today. That's a 60% increase, despite the fact that that does not include the one utility we run, the water, that doesn't include the now outsourced employees on that utility is not included in that payroll. We have seen how they've misused petty sales tax, where they put it to the voters. There were certain things on the project list for the penny sales tax, including the maintenance of a couple of bridges in my neighborhood of Tuscaloosa. And those bridges failed during Hurricane Ian. We went back and found out why they had failed. They were not properly maintained. They took that money and instead used it on other pet projects. And as a result, those unmaintained bridges failed during that storm. Our budget overall was between 2018 and 2020. It was about $44 to $50 million then. Now it's 79 to $80 million. That's an 80% increase in the last 5 to 7 years. And we can go down the list of some of these things that we're seeing in a small town. This isn't just a big city problem. This is a small town problem as well. And as a resident of Seminole County, I'm glad that somebody is looking into this because these increases affect my bottom line. And we just opened a store in Winter Springs Town Center. And when our community is squeezed, we feel that squeeze in a second way as a small business owner as well. So I could not be more grateful to our CFO, Blaise Angolia, and his staff. Let's not forget that he can't do all of this without his staff helping him. They are doing the Lord's work, and every resident of Seminole County should be grateful, as I am, for the work that they're doing. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So just to recap, we're not going away. We're going to continue beating this drum from now up until the time that we get actual property tax reform on the ballot in 2026. The governor is led on this issue. I am charging up the hill with the governor, and I'm doing it because it's important. You've heard the poll numbers. Housing affordability is a big issue here in the state of Florida. We in government can help deliver some of that affordable housing relief, not by subsidizing housing, but by actually cutting the cost of government. So with that, more than happy to take any questions y'all have. Yes, ma'am. So, number one, we have not gone into, this is a FAFO review audit. It is not a Doge audit. We have not been on site pulling all of the information to cite specific examples. But what you should understand, and all the cameras should understand, and everyone listening to my voice should understand, the growth in government itself is the largest part of that waste. So while we can go out and we can find examples of somebody hiring a poet laureate or spending $150,000 teaching illegal immigrants how to evade ICE, or a $75,000 hologram, that will just give examples of the types of spending. The growth in government itself is the largest part of the waste. The others are examples of how much local governments just don't care about your tax dollars. So while we have not done an actual DOGE audit and went in and started looking at the specific spending to do these calculations, because these calculations were done because Seminole County raised taxes in a time when people are hurting, when they should be cutting taxes. We're more than happy to come on site and start highlighting some of their wasteful spending. Next question. I can, but you can find it yourself. Just go on their website. It's right there. It's their budgets. My numbers are their numbers. My numbers that we're pulling are their numbers. We start off in the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget, and we index forward for inflation and population. We go in and we figure out what the inflation was, the population growth, and we index the budget every year on what it should be. So sure, I can get your numbers. It's probably easier if you just go hop on their website and get it, because their numbers are our numbers. Next question. That's a question for your administrator, and that's a question for the county commissioners. Excuse me? No, Seminole County may have said that they haven't raised millage rates in 16 years. They're still raising property taxes. Let's not fall into that trap, because that's a trap that local governments say, that we've held the millage rate the same. As property values rise, millage rates should fall to keep the level of government to the same. If millage rates stay the same while property taxes rise, it is a huge tax increase on people. How can you sit there? How can local governments seriously sit there with a straight face and say that, hey, I had a $3,500 property tax bill and now it's $3,900, but your property taxes didn't go up? Only for the press. It's all included. All included. Inflation, population, all that other stuff. We also include buffers in a lot of our calculations for stuff that we probably are just hedging, sort of like give them the benefit of the doubt. It's all included. That's why we say, and we are very confident saying, that Seminole County could reduce their millage rate by 0.81% and it wouldn't affect anything. They're going to come out and they're going to say everything. And look, you guys are good reporters. You're going to go and you're going to get their side, right? You're here for the press conference. I can already tell your producers have probably said, hey, just go sit down with this county commissioner or this administrator and get their take on it, right? Because you want to be fair and balanced. I get that, right? But when you listen to this at night, I want you to listen to me. And then I want you to listen to the people who just raise taxes on you. And then I want you to pull out your property tax bill. Then you're going to find out who's being truthful with you and who's not. Next question. Good question. Yeah, I'll explain it. So there are two things happening at the state level at the same time. There's DOGE, Florida DOGE, which is going in requesting all of the spending data, requesting emails, spending on things that, DEI related or related to Green New Deal, stuff like that. And they are looking for specific instances of egregious, wasteful spending that would probably make people's eyes roll in the back of their heads. That's when we see the money spent on a poet laureate program, $150,000 on a county teaching illegal immigrants how to evade ICE. That's the stuff that really gets people angry. What we're doing is our FAFO audits, which are separate and distinct, but they work together. While DOGE is looking for specific examples, we are looking at high-level spending trends to show you just how out of whack local governments are in relation to previous budgets and inflation and population. Does that make sense? So let me answer that question. Right now, we have very vast audit authority granted to me by the Florida Constitution to audit any entity, public or private, that is using taxpayer funds, right? And that's what we're doing right now. Now, at some point, I don't know what, because DOGE is administratively housed inside the office of the governor. I have constitutional authority. I can tell you what I am planning on doing. We are planning on reorganizing our office so we can go and we can do these forensic audits, if you will, on local government to track everything going forward. So we are trying to institutionalize identifying waste, fraud, and abuse at the local government and then letting the taxpayers know what it's being spent on, because we believe that is what the taxpayers deserve. Yes?
Are you planning on holding the state government, the same state?
Of course.
So what about audits is the $83 million
The $83 million,
the conservation lot?
the one that I voted no on? Well, I was one vote on three. It was 3 against 1. I voted no on that for one of the reasons, obviously, was for the price. So I practice what I preach when it comes to this stuff. Yes, ma'am. The vote was taken, the vote was approved, and unfortunately, it's a settled issue. I voted no because, again, I practice what I preach, and that's what I can tell you. Yes, ma'am. What I think they need to do is they need to start going into their budgets and starting to identify wants versus needs. I think they need to start looking at what the average local government employee is being paid compared to what the local private sector is being paid. They need to start looking at efficiencies. Look, the only way government is going to stop spending is if an outside force tells them to stop spending. And that's why a constitutional amendment is so important, because we can sit here and we can say you are spending too much money, cut your taxes. They can cut your taxes one year and then raise it the next year. They need institutionalized fiscal constraint, and that is what a constitutional amendment offers them. Last question. I don't. I would refer you that to Florida DOGE inside the governor's office. Guys, I want to appreciate all of you guys for taking the time to come out here. I want to appreciate the media for coming out and sending this message. Just know that as long as I am in this office, I'm going to be looking out for the taxpayer every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I don't care if it was a Republican overspending, or I don't care if it was a Democrat who actually spends your tax money wisely. I'm going to be nonpartisan on this. I'm going to call balls and strikes because the taxpayers deserve that. Guys, thank you for everything.